Clare FM's In the Garden with Clon Road Garden Centre, Clon Road Business Park in the heart of Ennis. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, our friendly staff are here to help your garden grow. Open 7 days a week, Monday to Sunday.
And I am joined by a no doubt suitably refreshed Judy Beck after the bank holiday weekend. Am I right or am I telling fibs?
Well, we've had a busy weekend in the garden centre, as you can imagine with the great weather we're having, and it's great to see all the customers.
Yeah, I kind of, to be fair, I did suspect, given it was a bank holiday weekend, and not a bad one from a weather perspective, that you might be busy, but sure you wouldn't want it any other way, would you?
Absolutely.
And she said it with a straight face, folks, that absolutely, I swear to God. Okay, 086 1800 964 if you have any gardening questions for Judy. Remember, we've a €25 voucher for the Clon Road Garden Centre to give away to one lucky listener. You could win that, but even if you don't, you will get a great answer to your question. No pressure, Judy. Before all that, though, you have lots to talk about. We'll get to the jobs for our listeners later on. But you are this week focusing on hanging baskets. And this is one given we at home have recently purchased hanging baskets. I'm keen myself to hear about. So talk to us a bit about hanging baskets and the tips of the trade.
Yes, so lots of people do make hanging baskets at this time of year. And in the garden centre, we make up lots of hanging baskets for customers. Some people bring in their empty hanging baskets and ask us to make them up because they say they just never turn out as good as when we make them. So maybe I can give some tips to help people learn how to make hanging baskets and to a garden centre standard. And of course, there are some things that really help them to last all the way through the season, because if you're looking at making them up in May and you want them to flower right through till September, it's quite a long time to keep them looking in tip-top condition. And I suppose one of my first tips would be to make sure your basket is big enough. So size does matter, and they do come in different sizes. From 12 inch, 14 and 16 inches would be the typical sizes for a domestic hanging basket. And if you can go for the at least 14 inch and preferably even 16 inch baskets, you will find it easier to keep them watered. And that is the biggest thing with hanging baskets, is the watering. Because if you ever see, in the middle of the summer, you can see hanging baskets looking a little bit sad around the place, and usually they've been let to dry out. And if you let them dry out... Oh my God,
she's been in my garden.
I think you're probably not the only one, but when they dry out, it's very hard to wet them again, So if, you go away for a week and you don't have anybody doing your watering and you come back to sad looking hanging baskets, it's very hard to get them back to how they were before. And
a thing that I always struggle with, Judy, is with our hanging baskets at home is when I do remember to water them, it's how much or how little. I'm never sure whether I should be nearly drowning the thing with water or just like, drip, 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 2 or 3 drops and it's fine.
Well, definitely not 2 or 3 drops. And unless you've really let the basket dry out terribly, I wouldn't say to drown it. If you have let it really dry out, do give it a good drowning, even sit it into a bucket of water. But in general, that's not a great idea, because when you drown it, you're also washing away all the nutrients out of the basket. So if you can keep it well watered, give it a good soak without absolutely drowning it, but don't just give it a few drips of water, because that's good, with the sun and the wind, and there's very little well in a basket, so they tend to dry out much quicker, for example, than pots do. So I would say, you're looking at watering almost every day. And even when it's raining, water, the hanging baskets by their nature tend to be at the front of the house. They might be under a porch. They might be, they're up against the house, where they just don't get the same amount of rain, because the eaves is probably blocking the rain on them as well. So even when it's raining, you still need to water the hanging baskets, I'm afraid. Okay,
I'm glad I had that cleared up for me, as I'm sure some of the rest of you are. What else do people need to know about hanging baskets, Judy?
Well, what kind of flowers are you going to put into it? This is the big thing, isn't it? And the favourite for people to put in is trailing petunias, or Surfinia petunias, as we call them, because they give a great show. They're really strong colours. You can get lots of colours in them. You can mix them up, and they're nice big flowers. So they make a a really good impression. The one thing about them, though, is that they need a lot of deadheading and they need a lot of maintenance. So I was saying that actually to a customer last week about the deadheading and maintenance, and she was saying, well, that's actually what I do for stress relief. So when I come home from work, I go out with my little secateurs and I start deadheading my flowers.
I can see how that would be a stress reliever.
For some people, it might cause extra stress.
I'm wondering, is she picturing something or someone when she's deadheading?
Maybe her boss. But some people really enjoy that and just doing that little bit of maintaining. And why do you have to deadhead? Well, some flowers, you see, once they start withering away, they set seed, and if they set seed, they think their job is done for the season, and they don't put out the same amount of flowers because they say, well, we've set seed now, new generation is coming. So deadheading is a way of fooling the plant into thinking they haven't set seed and that they need to keep flowering and flowering and flowering all summer. So that's the reason generally why we do deadhead, apart from just that it looks untidy when the flowers have died off. But there's lots of other plants you can use besides petunias, of course, for your trailing plants, such as bacopa, which is known as snowflake. Trailing geraniums are a great one, especially because they're drought tolerant. So if you want less watering, trailing geraniums. And trailing begonias, another really beautiful plant. And that trailing begonias just get better and better as the summer goes on. Now, those would be your trailing plants, but in the centre of the basket, you do, of course, need to have something upright. So we have our pillar and we have our spillers. So our spillers would be our trailing one, and our pillar would be the one in the middle of the basket. And again, tuberous begonias, they're called non-stop begonias because literally they non-stop flowering from when they start flowering around now right through the summer. Non-stop begonias are a really good one. Dahlias, I love dahlias, dahliettas really, miniature dahlias in the centre of a basket. Osteospermums, a really nice one as well. And don't forget about your trailing lobelia, small little plants that you can fit around your other plants, and they just give you extra colour. And we have all these in stock in Clon Road Garden Centre, getting lots more in during the week. We've deliveries coming nearly every day, so lots of fresh stuff always coming in for your hanging baskets.
Okay, lovely stuff. Feeding?
Yeah, very important. You can add slow release fertilisers into your hanging basket when you're planting up. They will release slowly over the next 4 months, but other than that, you can also use tomato food. Our product called Boost, which is a really good flower food for hanging baskets. And I would also recommend possibly a seaweed fertiliser. So every other week, maybe use a seaweed fertiliser, keeps the plants really healthy. And then every second week then to use your Boost or your tomato food to encourage the flowers to come on. Don't use chicken manure. I know someone who's put chicken manure into hanging baskets before. You'll get lots of greenery, loads of leaf and very few flowers. So very important to use your potash fertilisers such as tomato food and the slow release pellets.
Okay, sound advice there. And I guess just finally, I'm thinking of the red hanging baskets we have at home.
Okay.
The type and look of a hanging basket, does that really matter in terms of helping the plant or flowers to grow, or is it more just about the look that you're fond of? Yeah,
it's mostly about what look you prefer. And the wicker ones would be very popular because they look really nice. Or most people do like those. You can get the wire ones. And then you get a new liner usually every year for the wire ones. Or the plastic ones are good because they help to keep more water in. But apart from the basket, just not to forget about your brackets. Make sure they're not rusted. You don't want baskets can be pretty heavy when they're full of plants and full of water, and you don't want them falling on somebody's head. So just keep that in mind.
That is, you definitely don't want
your
that.
visitors to your front door.
Or yourself. Right, 086 1800. I'm just picturing that happening to somebody. 086 1800 964 if you have any gardening questions for Judy. Remember, there's a €25 voucher for the Clon Road Garden Centre to give away to one lucky listener. Before we get to the questions, though, you have some tasks drawn up for our gardeners listening this morning?
Yeah, a few tasks now for May, which are quite good to do in the garden. One of them would be if you had early flowering shrubs such as forsythia or chinomulus. Chinomulus is a flowering quince, flowers early in the year. Any of those early spring flowering shrubs should be pruned now. Otherwise, if you leave them till the winter, you'll miss out on the flowers for next year. So shrubs that flower before June, then you normally prune straight away. Shrubs that flower after June, you wait till the winter. What else do we have? Well, your climbers now will be growing like crazy, so make sure you're tying in the shoots of your climbers, such as clematis, wisteria and honeysuckle, to stop them from sprawling everywhere. And your daffodils, I know daffodils are well over, but the foliage is probably still there, and don't be tempted to cut it down too early or you won't get flowers next year. Try to wait. I know it looks a little bit unsightly and you're probably dying to tidy up the garden, but try and wait another few weeks until it's died away further, just to ensure really good blooms next year. And then for your shady borders, hostas and ferns, if you're looking to get those borders where you have a lot of shade in your flower beds, good time now to get hostas and ferns to fill up those shady spots of the garden.
Okay, brilliant stuff. 086 1800 964 if you have any gardening questions for Judy. Let's get to the questions we have received. And remember, there's a €25 voucher to be won for the Clon Road Garden Centre. And first person in the mix for it is Helen, who says, Helen. Ask Judy for recommendations, please, for an area under an acer. What do I plant there? Something or a mixture that will spread and thrive in a dry shaded area. There is a high wall on one side. Okay,
very interesting. Okay. So acer is a type of tree. Now there's a few different types of acers. It could be the Japanese maple acer, or it could be a bigger acer. Well, spring flowering bulbs are really nice, but difficult enough to get them at this time of year, but you could leave some space for them. Things like the bluebells and crocus look lovely under those deciduous trees. For dry shade, you can also put in lamium, which is a lovely silver-leafed plant. It gets a nice pink flower, does well in dry shade. And other things that you could put in would be, hostas would do okay. They don't like to dry out too much, but lovely under trees as long as it's not too dry an area. And maybe possibly the Japanese anemone for a pink flower, tall. It gets quite tall, spreads a lot. Vinca, if you want a ground cover, Vinca or periwinkle gets a nice little blue flower. They also come in a white flower. They're evergreen and they will spread like crazy. So drop in and see me in the garden centre. We have all those in stock.
Okay, great Thanks, stuff. Helen. There you go, Helen. And next up is Teresa in Milltown, Malbay, who says, "Morning, Judy." Just you. Just wondering, only joking, just wondering when I should start feeding my hydrangeas now that they are greening up, wonders Teresa.
Yeah, it's a good time now, and you can get a hydrangea feed. You can get it in liquid, or you can get it in granules, or you can just use something if you have any fish blood and bone, for example, lying around the place. Any of those, yes, now is a good time to feed your hydrangeas. Okay, there you go, Teresa. One here from a listener asking, how do I get rid of whitefly in an indoor plant? I've changed the compost and washed the root, but the little folk are back. I'm sensing they wanted to use a similar sounding word to folk. What you can start thinking about doing now, coming into the summer, is you can actually put your houseplants outside once it warms up a little bit more, because it's really good, because there's more predators outside for... you have more problems inside because there's nothing to eat these little flies inside the house. So putting them outside for the summer can do them the world of good. You can also get an insecticide for houseplants, which it's a new product actually, we got into the garden centre, and you can use that to spray on the plants as well. But I would recommend people to give their indoor plants some time outside during the summer. It's really good for them, and they get better light. And we have them kind of unnatural when it's inside, because it's all unnatural light and not very strong light. A lot of houseplants like to spend some time outside when it's warm enough. Yeah, good advice for plants and humans as well. I think another question here asking, when should I trim back? Is it Liberta grass? It's in bloom but has lots of brown leaves. Some come away easily. Yeah, take away you can do that now. You can take away any of the brown dying leaves, and that goes for any of the grasses. Especially if they're coming away easily in your hand, you can go around. It's a little bit time consuming, but it'll definitely tidy them up. And you can really do that at any time of the year, but certainly if they're not looking great now, I'd go ahead and do that. Okay, next question from one of the most dedicated gardeners in Clare. It's Kay in Clare Fm. Good morning to you, Kay. Hope you enjoyed the Festival of Finn as well that was happening over the weekend. She says, good morning, Alan and Judy. Judy, is it too late or too early to sow rooster potatoes in a polytunnel? And what cabbage plants have you got in stock? So the rooster potatoes, first of all, if you have potato seed, because at this stage you probably find it hard to buy it, but if you have it sitting there, I'd definitely get it into the ground. you're better off probably to put it outside. They take up an awful lot of room in the tunnel, potatoes do. If you have the space, I guess you could put them in, but it will be getting very hot in the tunnel now. So I would preferably, you could definitely plant them in the ground now, but if you can have space outside, Kay, I'd put them in the ground. And for the cabbage plants, in the ground outside, the cabbage plants, we have York cabbage, which is the nice pointy head, sweetheart cabbage. We have red cabbage plants, and we have round cabbage plants, and I think we have Savoy cabbage plants as well.
There you go, variety. So okay, you know what to do. Head down to the Clon Road Garden Centre. Claire's up next saying, Alan and Judy, good morning. Good morning to you, Claire. Claire wonders, Judy, can you really grow tomatoes in a grow bag? Does it work?
Hi Claire, yes it does, but you need to get the good quality grow bags. Don't be getting the skinny cheap ones, because there just isn't enough compost or depth of compost in them. So if you get a good quality tomato bag, yes, there's space for 3 tomato plants in those grow bags. Yes, you can definitely do it, but you also need to look after them, making sure you keep them sufficiently watered and sufficiently fed. But yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay, there you go, Claire. And final question for this morning from a listener who is wondering about roses. They're asking for a recommendation for the best liquid or manure for roses.
Well, what I use on my own roses is farmyard manure in the bags, because it improves the soil, and I always think you should be improving the soil as much as feeding the roses, because if the soil is good, your plants will always be good. So bags of farmyard manure is really good. If you don't like handling farmyard manure, because there is a bit
it's farmyard manure.
Yeah, exactly.
Say no more.
You can get a granular rose food, and yeah, that is really good as well. Now, if your roses are in pots, or if they're under the weed block, you know that black stuff, plastic stuff that you cover the ground with to stop the weeds coming up, in that case you're better off to use a liquid rose food. And of course, when you're using any of these liquids, make sure you dilute them enough, and don't be tempted to go heavy handed, or you'll burn the roots of them. So anything you make up yourself, make sure you read the directions. But yeah, any of those will work for feeding roses.
Okay, there you go. And there are other questions, but unfortunately I don't have time to get to them. You're just far too popular for your own good, Judy. Well done to Helen, who has a first question and is the winner of the €25 voucher. So Helen, you were looking for recommendations for an area under an Acer and what you plant there, and maybe you can put the voucher towards getting something to go under the Acer. So look, well done to you, but well done to everyone, because you've just had brilliant answers and solutions to your questions. Would you expect any less? No, you would not. Thank you very much, Judy.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Next week.
And see you next week. Back on your regular day of
I've got to
Monday.
run now.
Okay, Judy Beck from Clon Road Garden Centre there with us for this week's In the Garden.